Hey, everybody. Welcome to this month's episode of No Agenda. Today, I am blessed to have a social activist on the podcast. New type of guest for the show, but somebody who I think is going to have a lot to share, really great insight, some noble causes that he champions. So today, I'm lucky to have Chad Kroger here on our podcast. Chad is a social activist. He's a scooter aficionado. He's a foremost Fast and Furious expert as well. So, Chad, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, what up? So stoked to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, well, we are stoked to have you on, my man. If Chad looks familiar, it is very possible that you've seen him on the news, perhaps in your social media feed, perhaps in his Netflix documentary, or in your local city council meeting, where he, makes a lot of appearances to talk about issues facing the local populace. So, Chad, can you tell us how'd you first get started in social activism?
Social activism. You know, our biggest thing was, going to the city council and we made a petition for a Paul Walker statue.
It's in times like these we need a unifying figure we can all turn to, a beacon of headlights that can guide us down the dusty road. I was 11 years old when my first love, Ashley, betrayed me by moving to Newport Beach. I felt lost, alone, bummed. And it was in that melancholy that my dad took me to see The Fast and the Furious, where for an hour and 47 minutes I transcended my worries because I had just met my new hero, Paul Walker.
Because it was around 2017, so the country felt divided, and a lot of people there. Everyone, kind of, not unlike today, I guess. Everyone, both sides were just beefing extra hard, and I just had a thought pop into my head. I'm like, well, what brings if my friend groups are or if there's a rift in my friend group, what brings us together? Paul Walker. So I just asked the city council of San Clemente. I'm like, hey, if you put up a statue of Paul Walker, I think that's something that we can all rally behind. So that was the first big thing. But my first actual experience with local government uh, was this local pokey shop, which was the name was Pokey to Scoop, and basically, my buddy wanted to build a pokey shop, and he was building it, and then he ran into some zoning issues. And so we spoke to the council, like, hey, you should really build this pokey shop for this reason. And actually, I ended up arguing in favor of them not building it. I kind of gave the argument for why the zoning laws should prevent him from building it. So I kind of boned him on that, but I was like, it was sick getting into politics. So
Well, I think I think that goes to show sometimes you get started and then your point of view changes, and that's part of public discourse.
yeah, it was quite an experience being in the city council and being like, so here's like what you guys say was zoning, and then like literally having that change of thought, and then looking at my buddy Dylan is his name and being like, sorry, dude, but you should not build this. I think you should keep this historic um, house that is from 200 years ago.
Oh, he wanted to build a pokey shop in place of a historic home.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Did
Uh,
Dylan feel kind of bummed that you had changed your stance?
yeah, he was pretty PO'd, but I just I let him borrow my dad's car, and he got to do some donuts in it, and he was like, that solves the issue.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty sick.
I mean, donuts is kind of a good segue into the Paul Walker statue. You
Mhm.
mentioned a unifying figure. How did Paul Walker present himself to you as like the ultimate unifying figure?
Dude, I mean, you watch Fast and Furious 1 and Too Fast, Too Furious. Those two, especially, just for me, were super formative growing up because, you watch those movies and well, first off, he's beautiful. He has an aura around him, beautiful blonde hair. He can race cars. He's like a man of action and a man of high capability. So he can drive well, he can fix cars, he can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and he has like just a smile throughout all of it. And so on top of that, he's able to infiltrate the street racing world and do it seamlessly and kind of be like a mediator between all these crews. And on top of that, bed Vin Diesel's sister. Um, and that to me, I was like, how can you not love this guy? And I think that's something that's great about movies and pop culture, and is that in times of strife, we can always look to someone to kind of be like, well, that guy's sick, you know.
Yeah, he is. Do you remember what were like the dimensions of the statue? How big a statue are we talking about here?
So we want a 12-footer, 12-footer at least. We want a bronze statue. Um, I didn't really think about width, but he was lifting. You could tell he lifted, and not unlike yourself, I think he has similar physique to you. So I think we want to show that in the statue. And then, but the thing that the rub of it is that a statue like that costs 60K.
Oh,
Um, and so that's what's tough is to convince, be like, hey, we think you should take that 60K out of public education and put it into this statue is kind of a
yeah.
tough ask. So I've learned.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer. Has that any further progress on the statue, or is it kind of at a standstill at this point? What city council was it? Do you remember?
Uh, that was San Clemente, first
San
one.
Clemente. All right,
Yeah.
nice.
We gotta know up top. They built a 6-incher, which was kind of insulting, and kind of like, I don't want to be like conspiratorial, like you know, put my tinfoil shirt on, but they did have a number of shark attacks after they disrespected Paul like that. So,
There you
um,
go.
yeah, so just throwing that out there. But right now, it's still kind of we're still trying to find funding. I still believe in it, and we put up a GoFundMe for 60K. We raised 1K. So I had to send that all back to my uncle.
Who had donated the 1K?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you never know. Sometimes these things take time to get some traction, you know?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And then there was one, I remember, because I'm a car guy, as you know, how emotional is that scene in Fast and Furious where, he and Dom are separating on the road and they give
Hmm.
each other a nod, right? And this was after Paul had passed. Do you
Yeah.
remember watching that scene for the first time?
Oh, dude, yeah. It's heartbreaking. I've only seen it once because it was so tough to watch. It was beautiful, but it's yeah. Sometimes I was watching Too Fast Too Furious the other day, and it almost feels like it, sometimes you just forget that he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, but I'm grateful we have those movies to remember him.
Yeah, and he's a true artist.
Hmm.
I'd like to cover some of the other, social activism causes you've championed, if you will. So I
Hmm.
want to go through some of these. Can you tell us a little bit about your enthusiasm for house parties and how you ended up at a city council for house parties?
Yeah. So, I like to run. I like to do sprints on the treadmill. So I was at the gym. I was cranking out some sprints, and I saw on the news there, the news on the TV, and I saw that they were pretty much going to pass a law against house parties in the Hollywood Hills. Something to do with Airbnbs, and so I didn't really get into the minutia of the law. I just saw the headline and I was like, I just beelined it. I called my buddy JT. We just beelined it to the council and we're like, you can't do this. And that's how it works a lot of the time. If something speaks to me, I'm there.
And then JT now is getting involved in local politics, right? He's running for
Yeah.
office. Is that correct?
He's running for Burbank City Council. Yeah.
Man, he can get in there and make change from the inside.
I know, it's crazy. Like if he gets in the council, it's almost like he's entering the belly of the beast, and the amount of change he can create will be. And not that I view the government, the council as the beast, but he's really getting it. He can really affect positive change because I think effectively all of our proposals have been denied.
None have been successful yet.
No.
Are you worried that, like, him getting in there though could change who he is? Like, he starts getting impacted by all the kind of, negative, feelings in a city council, or maybe he shifts his viewpoint. Is that a concern?
Oh yeah, I think about it every day. I test him every day. I'll text him and I'll say things like, quote Tyrese in scene 2A, line 15 of Too Fast and Furious. And if he can quote it, I know he's still on track. The day he can't quote those things, I'll know that something's off.
Good.
So
I'm glad
yeah,
you're keeping an eye on him.
thank you.
What about coral reefs? That was a big cause for you guys, right? Ongoing environmental issue, coral reefs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what's going on with the reefs.
Dude, I mean, the reefs, so they're getting bleached, which is actually not sick. It means they're dying. Their mortality is being threatened. So, a bleaching effect is, because the ocean's getting so hot that they're just like getting bleached. And so we wanted to raise awareness for that. And the best way we knew is to bleach our domes, to anthropomorphize the coral on our domes. So, say like, hey, if the coral is getting bleached, we're going to get bleached too. And we're going to be bleached with the coral until the situation's rectified. So that's where we're at
How,
with that.
are you guys continuing to bleach, or, obviously, like, sometimes bleaching is good, but in this case, it sounds like it's a total bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer. And actually, when I bleached my hair, it looked really sick. Not to be braggy, but yeah, it's tough. When you bleach your hair a lot, actually, it almost like kills your hair, and that was a huge thing. I'm like, how far do I want to take this activism to where I actually kill my dome because it's kind of all I got. Um, so
That's important. We take care of that.
yeah,
How did JT look with his bleached hair?
dude, I thought he looked sick. But we went on Fox News, and the anchor Jesse Waters said he looked like a chia pet. So, uh, and then we went to like we were out, we were out getting Pink's hot dogs, and everyone was laughing. They couldn't stop laughing at him.
Oh,
Yeah,
poor guy.
yeah.
Poor
But
guy.
so he really took one for the coral. That's 100%.
That's how you're sacrificing for something important. It's like,
Okay.
I like it. Something else that, I know that in your past was really important was scooters and, like, scooting
Mhm.
around the city. How did you first discover your passion for scooters and for scooting, and how's that looking in the city? I know there are some people who really do not like scooters.
Yeah. So when I first saw scooters, at first I was like, "You're gonna put handlebars on the board? Like, come on, man! If they're gonna provide public transpo like that, just give us skateboards."
Yeah.
So that road one, and it's got a motor on it, dude. You could go 30 miles per hour on those things. I was flying down the street and just going to like different. It was like the amount of freedom I felt on the Crete like that. I was like I was doing S turns in the street. I was like, I just felt like a new man. I was like, this is insane. So I went to the council. I'm like, look, these things are sick, and I know that they're quote unquote littering the sidewalk, but I think they should be on every sidewalk, and I think that everyone should be scooting. I do think that if everyone were to scoot, that would lead to a utopian society. So I think it's as simple as that. People try to bring up things um, like AI and what's Neurodink, all those things are like that's going to create a utopian society. I'm like, dude, it's way simpler than that. Just jam handlebars and a skateboard and we're good.
What is the scooter situation like where you live? Is it like, are there still scooters, or has there been backlash from the community?
I gotta say, there's less scooters. There's more companies. I think a lot of companies. The first one was like Bird and Lime, and then a lot of companies were like, "Whoa, scooters are sick," and then they all started trying to make scooters, and then they ran into a bunch of bureaucratic red tape, and so now they're just kind of all. It's a tough sight to see because I don't see them as much. I don't see people scooting as much, and I do think it is directly responsible for the state of the economy.
Oh, really? Okay, you bring me to a good point.
Yeah,
You mentioned the other day I saw that you had posted something about inflation.
yeah,
Can you give us your take? It's been a really, on our end in the mortgage business, inflation's been a really hot button issue. Can you give me your take on inflation? I thought it was an interesting, uh, you know, take on the whole thing, an interesting perspective that I
hmm
hadn't really thought about before.
yes. I look. Like most people, when inflation first started, I was like, this is whack. Del Taco costs as much as a T-bone at Ruth's Chris. I'm like, what's going on here? And then I was like, kind of trying to. I'm always trying to just get fired up. So I'm like, how can I put this into perspective? So I was like, well, inflation, if you look at it, could be kind of sick because we're going through tough times right now. We're like in the red. Um, but when inflation cools down, we're going to be so stoked because we know what it's like to get teabagged by inflation, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So it's like, have you ever been teabagged before in the video games or anything like that?
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude. Well, you know, I actually happen to love it. Not in person, but in Call of Duty. Um, when you get downed in Call of Duty and then someone drops their nuts on your face, like it's is that cool for this pod?
Yeah,
Like,
that's cool. Yep. Yeah, you
yeah,
can say
yeah,
that
okay.
for sure. Yeah, yeah.
So when other players just dropping his nuts on your face, I'm just I don't know the amount it just fires me up. So right now we're getting teabagged by inflation. It's like prices are sky high, and the Fed Jerome Powell is just dropping his nuts on our face, and pretty soon he'll stop doing that, and we'll be able to get up and it's like sort of when you swing a baseball bat with a donut on, then you take it off, and you're gonna be like, wow, I'm glad I went through that entire that 5 year long tea bag, so that now the rest of my life I'm cruising.
I
Does
like that.
that make sense? Also, another thing, I was like, oh, it's like they say, like, tough times make dudes hard, and so right now we're going through tough times, but every dude I know is getting super hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Isn't there another part too of that saying?
No, dude, I don't know.
Something
Oh,
about like, hard dudes.
hard dudes make epic times.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
maybe we're just setting ourselves up for some epic times.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it all
Um,
starts with hard dudes.
there you go. One of the things in our industry, in the mortgage industry, that is a direct correlation to high inflation is high interest rates. All right. And
Mhm.
that was one of the things a couple years ago, right? Really big in the news as rates started to come up, as interest rates started to come up. And I remember you posted something about that too, about interest and measuring interest rates and interest rates going up. But you felt like amongst your folk, your friends in your circle, that how was interest measured, right?
Yeah.
Um, like I think it was interest rates were coming up, but you said interest amongst your circle of friends wasn't really up.
No, amongst my peers, there's no more interest in finance and the economy. So it's interesting they say that. You'd see that in the media, and the news would be like, "Yeah, interest rates are going up," and I'm like, "Well, uh, who are you giving these polls to?" Because there's virtually zero interest in my neck of the woods. So, you know, I mean, it's just tough to know what to believe these days, is what I'm trying to say, Noah. And,
Yeah.
they say interest rates are going up. I don't feel it. I don't see it. They say interest rates are going down. I'm like, well, I didn't even think they were up to begin with. But and it's crazy being in the mortgage business too. You got to deal with interest rates, and it's like, I didn't even know that was a thing where it's like you have to get people like they how interested people are in mortgages directly affects your business. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That is true. I think there's a slight disconnect between your view of how we are looking at interest, right? Like your personal involvement or excitement about interest versus like the interest rate, which is the cost of
Mhm.
money. But I
Yeah.
think your point's well taken regardless.
Thank
So I think it's a really good point. And to your point about, the media just making things more difficult for people and,
Yeah.
going with their own story versus maybe what's happening in people's lives. So I appreciate that perspective.
100p. Thank you.
Um, I did have some other questions. We're on the finance jag now, and I know
Mhm.
you've mentioned a little bit, about your investment in some stocks and stuff. What are you invested in right now?
Dude, I got a ton of stock in Billabong. And I've been really bearish about Billabong since middle school. So my grandma gave me a fair amount of bones, and I'm like straight into B bong. So I haven't diversified my portfolio or anything like that. I was told to invest in Bitcoin, and my buddy Bonk wants me to buy some of his um, uh, NFTs, which are basically just photos of him shirtless. And I was like, dude, I don't like you got a good physique, but I don't think you're the next Arnold. So you gotta when people throw financial opportunities at you, you you have to you have to be what's the word? You have to be smart about it.
Yeah,
Is Billabong. I think board shorts will always be in high demand, especially if temperatures are rising more so. I mean, I think that is literally to me makes so much sense. Where they're like Al Gore's like temperatures are rising, and I'm like, well, people are going to wear more shorts.
that's a good point. If we've got global warming, then we need more board shorts.
Yeah.
Didn't you and JT at some point, weren't you guys have some NFTs to invest in? I remember there was, on the Strand maybe like a skirmish even
Oh
erupted
yeah,
over the sale of some of your NFTs or something.
yeah. We tried to sell some NFTs of us scootering, and these two guys. We were in Huntington Beach on a Tuesday afternoon, so people were out day drinking, and and we went to this Irish pub, and these two bros were like, they were like, there was just a bidding war. We started a bidding war, and shirts came off, and they started just brawling, and ended up selling it to this guy Crazy Cody on the pier. Um, so, have you ever dabbled in NFTs?
No, I didn't dabble in NFTs. I didn't feel like I understood them well enough to, make an informed decision about them.
Would you be interested in Bonks? I mean, he's still selling those.
you know, I don't know. If he doesn't have like an Arnold physique, how much are these NFTs going to be worth?
I mean, he's got a pretty sick vein on his deltoid, so
Maybe,
if
maybe
that,
I'll take a peek at it.
yeah. I mean, it's worth checking with Gen Z to see if that's in fashion.
That's true. I didn't think about Gen Z. Um, we got also some questions from the audience. I'd put it out there that you were going to be on the podcast and your reach is pretty far. So I got a few questions. I want to go through them with you.
Yeah.
Somebody asked what your favorite city is that you visit. You've been all over the country in city council meetings and all sort of stuff. Do you have like a favorite city that you've been to?
Favorite city I've been to? Ooh. um, I think. Oh man, dude, Miami.
What?
Miami's awesome.
Yeah, tell me about Miami.
It feels like you're in a different country. You go there and it's like there's water everywhere, sunny skies, there's yachts, and everyone's in good shape, and you just go there and you're like, wow, this is a party. I
Uh,
like, you grow up watching Bad Boys too, right? And you're like, Miami looks sick, but then you actually see it and you're like, oh, it is exactly like Miami is literally a Michael Bay film in city form. Does that make sense?
yeah, actually, it does make sense. Yeah.
It's awesome. So yeah, if you think of Michael Bay movies, Miami is the city version of that.
And I think maybe it was, I don't know if it was related to your time in Miami, but I think you guys also had a cause where you were trying to get yachts donated for public usage.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Give me that a little bit, kind of the details on that.
well, let me ask you a question first, Noah. Have you
Yeah.
ever partied on a yacht?
I mean, I have been on something, I guess, technically that, yeah, you describe as a yacht.
And so, how did you feel when you did that?
Amazing. That's an incredible feeling.
And isn't that something that you think the whole world should feel at least once a month?
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be great if people could have that feeling.
Yeah. So that's the basic idea. Is like, we learned that not everyone has the ability to party on a yacht, and that's, I think, a huge injustice. And so, I think if everyone were able to party on a yacht, I mean, imagine how stoked everyone would be. It'd be insane. I mean, if you know, people right now, they're on Twitter, they're arguing, they're trying to, they're talking about whatever it is they're talking about. But then, if they get off Twitter and they all go party on a yacht,
Beef
what's
is gone.
yeah, I mean, grill it up and eat it.
There. Yep. That's a good point.
Thank.
All right, we had another question. Somebody wanted me to ask you about. I don't know what this is in reference to, but about intergalactic crotch wars.
Mm. Yeah. So basically, my brothers and I, growing up, as well as our cousin Evan, and you can bleep out his name if you want. But we would all play bag tag growing up, which is where use the back of your hand. It's a more of like it's a fun take on tag. It's sort of a variation on tag, except when in tag you can touch any part of someone's body, but in this you have to make contact with sack. Um, so I remember one time I just backhanded my brother Mark's sack, and his eyes welled up, and I looked at my brother Bill, and he was nodding with approval, and my cousin Evan gave me, just like a flex, and that we weren't bullying Mark. Mark was often hard on me, so and it wasn't. I don't like putting my brother in pain. I love my brother, but it was just a well executed crotch war move, and so
Nice.
that's how seriously we took it.
I've got another question here too. Somebody asked about the health benefits of perineum sunning. Am I saying that
Hmm.
right?
Correct. Yeah.
Can you walk us through, if people watching this aren't familiar with what that is? Can you tell us a little bit about perineum sunning?
So perineum sunning. So the perineum is actually the stretch of skin. Um, you know, and pardon my language, from your beehole to your sack. And I'm sorry for talking about sack so much in the podcast. I know we're getting into the minutia of the economy and stuff, but I think the two go hand in hand. Um, but yeah, so that point of part of your body is very sensitive to the sun, and so if you get direct sunlight on there, the taint, um, that will just boost your stoke by I can't. It's not really quantifiable. It's almost like how um, the effect that um, a black hole has on a star that's nearby. It can suck up a whole star. That's why you see the swirling, stuff. Your taint is kind of like a black hole sucking up the vitamin D. It has such dense gravitational pull for vitamin D. It's crazy. And so, boosted immunity, boosted stoke. You can read better. um, all that good stuff. So,
Have
yeah.
you ever accidentally sunburnt your
Uh,
perineum? I mean, it seems like perhaps a danger if you're more fair skinned. I don't know.
yeah, if you're more fair skinned, I have a really good base.
Yeah.
So I'm not really, I don't really worry about that. Some people, Josh Brolin burnt his. So you have to look out if you're not well seasoned in that. But no, I have a really good base, so I'm good to go.
Let's get to maybe like just short periods of time to build up that base in that area.
Mhm. Hundo P.
Nice. We had a question come in. It said, "How's the schmoll?"
Did the,
I know because I'm familiar, but maybe explain to the audience what a schmoll is and then how the schmoll's doing.
so Schmoll is sort of like the undesirable in your friend group, the renob, which is boner backwards. So the Schmoll is kind of like the guy in your friend group that no one really likes, but we have him around, and maybe people don't like him all the time, but he is very entertaining, and also at his heart, he has a heart of gold. So our Schmoll is Kevin, heart of gold, can be kind of in your face. He's a DUI lawyer, and we he's great. He and I spent a lot of the pandemic teabagging on Call of Duty, and right now he has a child, which is crazy, little Schmoll Junior, and he's just doing his thing. Where we have a show with him every month called Bros Before Joes with our buddy Joe. But the Schmoll is good. He's yeah.
Awesome. Now, on your documentary on Netflix, I remember, weren't you guys trying to create a special place for all the schmolls?
Yeah, Catalina Island.
Yeah.
Because Schmolls love Catalina, so we're like, we're gonna send them all there. But I guess it was maybe a little bit meaner than we anticipated, so that's what happened there.
Well, and then when you were surrounded by all the schmolls, it started to have an effect on you guys, right? On the
Dude,
non-schmolls in the group.
we became Schmolls. It was crazy. Yeah, we literally became Schmolls. Which is it's actually kind of fun. You know,
Yeah,
it's just a lot of uh, you know, you just take the dick jokes times 10.
that's
That's
a
kind of
big
what
big part of being a schmoll. And
and
Kevin's got a schmoll junior. Is being a schmoll, is that like nurture or nature? Like is Schmoll Jr. is he like, you can already tell, oh, this guy's going to be a Schmoll, from an early age, right? Like some young people you see and they're like great athletes, and you're like, oh, this guy's going to be a great athlete, right? Like
right.
even when he's a kid. Is that a more nature or more nurture on the Schmoll side?
I mean, it depends on your philosophy. I'm more of a nature. I think people are born schmoles. I think the way you're nurtured can definitely turn you into a schmole. So it's really kind of yeah. I mean, dude, tough cue. I mean, your father. Have you seen any? And I don't want you to get in trouble with your children's friends' parents, but have you seen any just pure schmoles where you're like, oh, that's you know, maybe he's
Yeah.
born with it, maybe he's schmoling.
Yeah, I definitely there. I mean, it won't be specific, but yeah, they're definitely friends of our kids who I'm like, oh, that kid's, that guy's a schmoll for sure. Like, oh, is a future schmoll. He's already kind of the
Wow,
schmoll. And so you're like, well, maybe he'll go through puberty and he'll outgrow it, but it's also possible that it's just he's naturally schmollish. So I guess we'll see. But for sure, I've recognized it in some of my kids' friends that, yeah, I'm like, oh, that kid's a schmoll. Yeah, it's
dude,
true.
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
so have you ever like let it slip, being like, being like, you're at a baseball game or something, and you're like, yeah, you played well against that schmol.
No, luckily not to the kids. Only to Lindsay, only to my wife,
Oh,
I'm
okay,
like,
okay.
oh man, that kid is a total schmoll, so, but not to the kids, so they don't know, luckily. I
Yeah.
remember when I was a kid, I had a friend, and at the time I wasn't familiar with the nomenclature of the word schmoll, but I
Hmm.
had a friend who was, he was like for sure looking back a schmoll, and my dad told me, not using that word, but that my friend Kevin was coincidentally, my
Wow.
friend Kevin, I know, maybe that's the name Kevin, who knows?
Yeah.
Um, but that he was like a schmoll, and I remember it hurt my feelings when I was a kid.
Wow.
So, I don't want to tell my kids that their friends are schmolls, because I
Yeah.
remember being like, "Oh, that hurt my feelings." But looking back on it, yeah, he was like definitely a schmoll. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, I had similar situation where my parents would they wouldn't say schmoll, but they'd say something to the same effect, and then looking back, you're like, wow, that kid was a giant schmoll.
Yeah. Same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Um, Recently you and JT went to a Dom convention, right? You dressed up
Mhm.
as Dom Toretto, and you went to a Dom convention.
Yeah,
What can you walk me through how that went?
yeah. So we heard there was a Dom convention, so naturally we dressed up like Dom Toretto, and then we show up there, and we learned that there weren't any Dom Torettos there, but there were Doms there.
Can you
And
now Dom Toretto, if you don't haven't seen Fast and Furious, which is
right,
a separate crime, but that Vin Diesel's character in Fast and Furious.
correct. Yeah,
Yeah, so like bald head, wife beater, like a chain. So you
correct.
went for the Dom convention, but you said there's different types of Doms?
Correct. So a dom, so we learned, is a um person who likes to get things, get spanked, and put on a leash, and and flogged, I think is the correct term, and pegged, if I can be so bold. So yeah, huge miscalculation on our end. Not that I'm opposed to getting spanked, but it's definitely. I don't think Vin Diesel um, is. Oh wait, no, Doms are the ones doing all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so maybe Vin Diesel is a Dom. Crazy.
Well, Vin Diesel is a Dom and a Dom.
Yeah,
Maybe.
if I, I'll have to ask him.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good question if you ever meet him. Um, there was something else, and this is a sensitive issue. If you don't want to talk about it, of course, let me know. But I learned in your documentary another, cause that was near and dear to you was, nobody wants to be shamed for who they are or things they can't control.
Hmm.
And in our society, there are plenty of things that we get, that people will shame you over things you have no control over. Maybe you're short, or maybe you can't run fast, or, any number of things. You have to wear glasses, right? I don't know, all sorts of things. But
Hmm.
you had a particular cause, and I'm going to say this delicately, but you were, you know, really fighting to end small dong shame.
Hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about that crusade?
Yeah, so it all started with our buddy Strider. We went streaking, and he was shamed by this guy Philippe for having a small dong. And Philippe's French, and he's like, "Oh, suck the blood! Look at the tiny wiener! Oh my god, it's like a tiny baguette. It's almost like a crouton." And I don't mean to laugh, but it was a really good roast. And Strider felt bad, and he didn't want to streak anymore. And we're like, man, that's crazy. So yeah, we're like, well, we need to stand up for small donks. We need to make it. Why do people get to shame guys who have small donks? Especially because I think you could argue that it's kind of an assumption that all the French have small dongs. So um, Philippe was way out of pocket there. And you can bleep that if you want. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get your podcast in trouble with France. Um, But yeah, so basically, we just want everyone to, if they have a small dog, if you have a small dog, you can feel safe knowing that I accept you, JT accepts you, the no agenda accepts you,
Yeah.
and the I came out and said I had a small dog. Apparently, it's average. This is according to a bouncer at a bar, and they know their stuff. So, but I still identify as a small donger.
Well, and you can be an ally to the movement, even if you're not technically a member afflicted, right? You could still be an ally.
100%. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
a noble cause. Is there anything else? We've got this platform here. Is there anything else you want to share or talk about? Things that are close to your heart right now?
Um, I just want to give a shout out to yeah. Let's see what. Well, I guess my buddy Frank is starting a new sunscreen company, so I want to give a shout out to him. It's called Just the Minerals, and it's literally just he's trying to get all this gunk out of there, so it's basically just sand. Um, so yeah, shout out to him for that company. He's going on Shark Tank soon. And then yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm just fired up. Yeah,
I love
I'm
it.
stoked on inflation and stoked on this pod. So I'm stoked on. I was in New Orleans recently, and they had no container, open container, and I was like, let's get this going in the whole country, maybe with just pina coladas. I think that would get everyone fired up. So yeah.
I like that. There's an outdoor mall near us that is you can walk around now, open container in the mall, in
Oh
like the
wow.
open air mall. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
really?
Yeah, they
That's,
got a little like Fat Tuesdays like, booth, and you can get
yeah,
your thing or a beer from a bar or restaurant, and you just walk around the mall.
dude, that's sick.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to come see you or, catch you guys, where are some places you got coming up, and where are some good places that they could kind of, maybe they're learning about you guys for the first time today. Where can they catch you? Where could they see what you have going on?
So you can catch me on Chad Goes Deep on Instagram, Chad and JT on TikTok, Chad and JT Go Deep on YouTube, and then we're touring, so we're doing shows. So we next week we'll be at the Comedy Store, and then we got Spokane coming up. We got Victoria, Canada, Vancouver, Pittsburgh, New York City, Montana, um, Brea Improv, Indianapolis, St. Louis, Chicago. So you can get tickets at chadjt.com. And then we're working on some other stuff. So I think we're keep an eye out because we got some projects in the works that will I think get everyone fired up on you know small, giant, medium sized dogs will all enjoy.
All folks of all kinds could enjoy it.
Yeah, dude.
A truly inclusive community. I love it.
Yeah. So I'm stoked. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Chad. Thanks for taking
Yeah.
your time. I know there's a lot of, demands in your schedule, and you guys are touring, like you just described, like mad. And
Mhm.
I'm super excited that all these people across the country get to hear your message. And, I think whether it's your Paul Walker statue or ending small dong shame or any of these things, your message is really one about inclusiveness and community. And to use your words, raising everybody's stoke.
Mm.
And I think that's something we all need right now. So thank you
Dude,
for that. Thank you for taking the time and for what you
thank
do out there.
dude, preach. Thank you for having me on. This is a blast.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
guys. Thank you very much, Chad. We'll talk soon. Have a good one.
Have a good one.